334 articles vanished off one of my own sites. I found out from a crawl, months after the fact, not from a person. Every bot link sitting on any of those pages died the same day. Nobody emailed the people who had paid for them, not because anyone was covering it up, because there was no list of who they were. I buy placements and I sell them, so I have watched this from both chairs. And the thing nobody says out loud is that a link is priced like a purchase and behaves like a rental. You pay once. It can be taken away at any moment by somebody who is not thinking about you at all, and you will not be told. The 5 ways a link stops existing. Let me put the failure modes in the order I actually see them, from my own ledgers and from cleaning up the aftermath on sites I own. First, and by a distance the most common, the page gets deleted. Nothing personal. Somebody decides 400 thin posts are dragging the domain down and runs a cull over a weekend. Your paragraph was in one of them. Die second. The link quietly turns no follow. A theme update, a plugin that starts stamping attributes site-wide. A new hire who decides all outbound gets marked from now on. The page is still there. Your sentence is still there. The link stopped passing anything 8 months ago. Nidim. Somebody refreshes a 2-year-old guide, cuts it from 2,000 words down to 1,200, and your paragraph is one of the ones that did not survive the edit. The URL is fine. The page still ranks. You are simply not in it. Fourth, the site changes hands. New owner, new priorities, and stripping outbound links is one of the first things a lot of buyers do because they read somewhere it helps. An entire outbound profile can go in one afternoon by somebody who has never heard of you. Fifth, and the rarest, despite being the one everyone worries about, the domain lapses. It expires, it gets parked, it fills with ads, or somebody buys it at auction and turns it into something you would rather not be linked from. Notice what all 5 share. None of them generate a notification. No email, no dashboard, no red dot anywhere. The money left your account in one clean event and the asset leaves in total silence. The 200 trap. Here is the specific mechanical reason nobody catches any of this. A page that loads perfectly with your link surgically removed still returns a 200, so does a page where your link turned no follow. So does a page that was rewritten around you. So if your monitoring checks status codes, and almost everybody's does, it will report green forever. It is checking that the seller's site is up. It has never once checked that you are on it. I have seen people run link monitoring for 2 years and feel diligent about it. What they were monitoring was the seller's uptime. The seller was fine. The placement had been gone since the 2nd quarter. What a real check looks like. So what do you actually check? More than you think. And it still takes under a minute per link if you script it. Fetch the page and search the raw HTML for your destination URL. Not the rendered page in a browser tab where your eye skips over things. The source. Either the string is in there or it is not. Then find that anchor and read its real attribute. This is the one people skip. No IPNER is a security attribute and passes value fine. No follow, sponsored, or UGC means what you are holding is a mention. All 3 look identical to a human reading the page. Then read the anchor text. It drifts. Somebody edits a sentence for flow, and your carefully negotiated phrase becomes the word here. Then check whether the page itself is still indexable. A no index tag added during a site cleanup removes the page from the equation entirely while leaving your link visibly sitting on it, which is a special kind of useless. And check where the page redirects, if it redirects. This is the category that hurts, why redirects are the worst case. A page that quietly began redirecting somewhere else is more dangerous than a dead one, because everything about it looks healthy. It returns a 200 at the end of the chain. Your crawler is happy. A human clicking through gets somewhere that loads. And your link is now either pointing at a consolidated page it was never meant for, or it has been dropped in the merge and you are counting an asset that stopped existing at the redirect. I found several of these when I audited outbound on my own properties. Links we had placed years earlier now landing on whoever had bought the domain since. None of them catastrophic, all of them embarrassing. Everyone had been live and wrong for months, while every automated check on earth reported them fine. How often to check? Now the interval, because this is where people either do nothing or wildly overdo it. Check at 30 days first. The earliest failure window is the boring one. A placement that goes live and gets pulled or edited within the first month. usually because somebody more senior looked at the page afterwards, then quarterly for the first year, then twice a year forever, or for as long as you are still counting that link as an asset. That cadence comes from what I can sustain across a ledger without it turning into a second job, rather than from any study. The discipline matters far more than the number. A check you genuinely run every 6 months beats a monthly one you abandon in March. And write down the result with the date, even when nothing changed. The value is in the history. When a link does eventually disappear, the last clean check tells you roughly when, which is the only thing that lets you go back to the seller with anything more useful than a shrug. What to agree before you pay? This is the part that is genuinely worth negotiating, and almost nobody does it because it feels awkward at the point where you are trying to close. Put a duration on it in writing. One line in an email. How long is this expected to stay up? And what happens if it comes down inside that window? Ask whether they will tell you if the page gets rewritten or pruned. Most will say yes and most will forget, but you now have something to point at. Pin the position if position matters to you. The one placement I have sold with a real term attached specifies 12 months, no rotation, and the name slot on the page. I wrote all three down at the time because I knew perfectly well I would forget it otherwise, and 11 months from now, a rewrite would have quietly breached a deal somebody paid me for. And settle what replacement means before you need it. An equivalent page on the same site is replacement. Being dropped into a roundup post assembled last Tuesday is not, and that is what you will be offered. None of this survives the site being sold, and you should know that going in. A new owner inherits the domain, not the emails, and a term you agreed with the previous person is worth exactly as much goodwill as they feel like extending. So the term protects you against the seller changing their mind. It does nothing at all against the seller leaving. Why a refund is often the worst outcome. People ask for their money back and think they have won something. You got some months of value out of the placement. You have now got a hole in your profile where a link used to be, and you are back at the start of a sourcing process that took you weeks the first time. The cash is the smallest part of what you lost. Replacement on comparable material is worth more than the refund almost every time. Ask for that first and treat the refund as the fallback. The permanent question. Everybody asks the seller whether the link is permanent. The answer is worth far more as a signal about the seller than as a fact about the link. Anybody who says permanent, flatly, with no qualification, has either never run a site for 5 years or is telling you what closes the deal. Sites get rebuilt. Platforms get migrated. People quit and their replacement has opinions. The answer I respect goes something like, it stays as long as the page does. Paid placements never get stripped by me, and if the page gets rewritten, you will hear about it. Somebody answering like that has watched their own site change under them and knows what they can honestly promise. The vaguer answer to listen for is the one that just repeats the word permanent back at you with more emphasis. That is somebody who has not thought about year 3. My position, which will annoy people, a link you have not checked in 6 months should not be in your count, not devalued, not asterisked, out of the number until you have gone and looked. Because the distribution of what happens to unchecked links is not gentle, and the count you have not verified is a count of things you bought once, which is a different thing from a count of things you have. People push back that this makes their profile look worse. It does. It looked worse the whole time. You were the one not looking. The mistake. I want to be specific about my own version of this rather than lecture you about yours. I deleted content on a site I own without any record of who had links on it. That was the 334 articles. Some of those pages carried placements that other people had paid for or swapped for, and I cannot now tell you which ones because the list did not exist until after the damage. The outbound ledger I keep, the one that records what is on my sites for other people and what I promised them, was created in July this year. It should have existed years earlier. Everything before that date is reconstructed from memory and email searches, which is to say it is incomplete and I know it. The same audit turned up the mirror image. Links still live on my pages pointing at partners whose arrangement had ended years before, because removing them was nobody's job either. Obligations in both directions, unmanaged in both directions. What this does to the price. If a placement is a rental, then the only sensible way to think about the price is per year of survival. The trouble is you cannot know the denominator at the point of purchase, so price on the assumption of 1 year and treat anything past that as upside rather than as the thing you paid for. That reframing changes which placements look expensive. A cheap link on a site that culls content annually is worse value than a dearer one on a site that has not deleted a page since 2019. And you can check that last part before you buy. Pull up their oldest indexed articles. If the archive from 4 years ago is still there and still maintained, that tells you more about how long your link will last than any authority score on their media kit. The checklist I run and the exact wording I put in an email before money moves is at theseodesk.com. Subscribe for more on link building.